Hello everyone. Today we're going to cover using Zoom in your classroom. You can access this presentation by going to tinyurl.com/Zoom20. You will need to be logged into your work Google account in order to access it. All right. So, table of contents, the numbers or links will take you throughout the presentation. We're going to talk about best practices first. One of the best practices would be to learn how to troubleshoot Zoom on your own and then be ready to train your students from the get-go on how to access Zoom and how to deal with any common issues like your video or audio not working properly. Each of these up here are going to be hyperlinks. You can click on those hyperlinks to go to the video that will go over how to troubleshoot it. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on once we actually open up Zoom. Face-to-face. What can we do in Zoom that we can also do in face-to-face? Well, it turns out a whole bunch of stuff. So the first thing is going to be whiteboards. You can use your screen as a whiteboard and you can write on it, put text on it, do all kinds of things with it. You can also allow your students to annotate upon it, and you can actually use your own whiteboard. So you could have a PowerPoint up there and annotate upon that, or you can share your screen as a whiteboard and then annotate it that way. So both of those will work, very useful. So check that feature out. One other thing to note is that there are breakout rooms. So you do have access to the ability to do breakout rooms. You're going to need to change your settings, and we're going to talk about your settings here in a little while, but breakout rooms are possible. Also, within the settings, you can toggle on the ability to give a thumbs up, thumbs down, to clap, and to also answer yes or no questions, and to go slower or go faster. So that's something that you can toggle on or off in your settings for your students can do. You got to think about how are they going to ask questions of you while you're giving a short direct teach. And so what are the norms? Are they able to just unmute themselves and ask a question? How did that work in your class? And how is that going to work in your remote class? So what are the best practices for you that work best for your class? Practice. I was in a PD earlier today, and we had one of our teachers suggest practicing with your loved ones. Get a Zoom link going, start the meeting, and then share the link out with your family members and have them join, and then practice being the host. Practice getting used to the Zoom host controls and the securing stuff and doing all the different things that you are able to do as a host. You can also practice by joining from your own devices. So you could start the meeting and host it from your computer, and then you could join it from your phone and other devices in your house. So practice makes perfect. I definitely recommend practicing as much as you can. And also practice with your students. What are the norms for them entering your classroom? What are the norms, like we talked about a second ago, for asking questions or answering questions for that matter? How are you going to deal with the naming conventions? Do you expect them to conform to a certain naming convention so that you're going to see their names in the waiting room and be able to securely allow them into your classroom? All of those things you're going to need to think about and have a plan for, and then be able to adjust and make it work for you and your scholars. Key terms to know. The host is a person that is hosting the meeting. You can have co-hosts, and then attendees are going to be our scholars. They are the ones coming in. Now, you a lot of times this summer have gone to PDs through Zoom, so you've been attendees there, and you've also hosted. So practicing from both sides on all types of devices is a good idea, and learning how to troubleshoot is another great thing to be able to teach your students how to do from the get-go. You'll notice over here to the right of the audio and to the right of the video, you have those little up arrows. I'll show you later, but when you press on those, you'll be able to actually check your settings for those. And so you'll be able to teach your students how to do this. This is the control bar for you. This is an older one. There is a security tab now that we will talk about here shortly. All right, so here it is. I'm going to go ahead and start demoing what it is to in your settings to do that. My recommendations for your settings. Now, these are only recommendations. You need to personalize your own classroom. I can also say below here are my recommendations in these slides that follow. And this link right here will take you to a presentation that Mrs. Chun set up at the beginning of the pandemic that still applies now and is a great resource to access also. So I'm going to go over to my Zoom, and I am going to see that I'm not logged in, I should say, because it says my account here. So I'm going to click my account, and then it's going to log me in with my work Google automatically there. Profile, we don't have to talk too much about this. One thing I will talk about though is this right here. Your profile picture by default will be your Google login picture. So that could be initial if you've never changed that, or it could be a picture of something else or a picture of you or whatnot. Also know that will also hold true for your students if they happen to log into the Google and get authenticated. And we'll talk about what authentication means later. So you can change this, and to know also that you can toggle this off within your settings if you think that might be a distraction in your classroom. If your students are not showing their video, then this is what shows, just like for us. Clicking on meetings, you'll notice I have my upcoming meetings here by default as a start, and then you'll see all my upcoming meetings. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to create a new meeting, and we're going to do it as a recurring meeting, just like we would do if we taught, first through fifth period, and we have 5 different classes, and we want to have a separate link for each of the classes. So I'm going to click on schedule a new meeting, and then I'm going to title it. You can have a template. We're not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and have this start on Friday, and then I'm going to have it start in the AM, and then let's just go ahead and say that's going to start at 9:30 and run approximately an hour. You can actually turn it into just minutes if you wanted to, but they round it by 15-minute increments. So I'm going to just leave it as an hour, Central Time Zone. And then this is what's really important here, recurring meeting. I'm going to say that it recurs weekly. And then I'm going to click the days. And in this case, it's going to be the weekdays. And then I'm going to click the date. And I'm going to choose that I'm going to have, think that we're going to be done here by October 23rd. You could also check the dot here and say after X number of occurrences, but they limit it at 20. So I'm going to go ahead and do it by the date over here. Registration would simply would make it where they have to register when they would have to put in their name and email, and then that would have that show up for them. So attendees need to register for each occurrence to attend. I'm going to go ahead and put that on there. And then scrolling down, by default, I leave the video for participant and host off. You might choose to change that. And at the beginning of your class, make sure that everybody at least gets to say hi and see each other's videos and whatnot. Audio, we always leave that as both, computer and telephone. For meeting options, I'm going to not allow them to enable joining before the host, and I'm going to mute participants upon entry. Now for this one right here, only authenticated users can join. That would mean they would need to be logged in, and you would need to train them to log in with their Google account. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that unchecked, as I am also going to do the breakout room. Recording the meeting automatically, that's a good thing to have. It will record it automatically onto your local computer, and then you can upload it into your Google Drive and then be able to share it into your classroom for the direct teach for any students that missed it, or they need to spiral back or need some refresher there. Now, if you have an inclusion teacher or someone else as a co-teacher, or you have an admin on your campus that is going to be coming into your classroom, you can add them as a host. and, or I should say as a co-host, and you can just put in their email right there and then click save. Now I'm going to see all my settings here, and I'm going to be able to go over here and I can click copy invitation, and then this is what you would be able to copy. You'll notice that I am forcing them to register in this one. If I didn't want them to register, they could just come in as guests and whatnot, and they wouldn't have to put their email on or whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that registered like that. But if I wanted to change that, I'll show you how to do that also. Okay, so I'm going to go back on my path to my meetings. And here we are back in the beginning, and you'll notice that second period is now populating along with the first period. So I'm going to go to my second period, and you know what? I'm going to change something about it. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to say edit this meeting. And then I'm going to say all meetings, because I want this setting to sit. And let's say that I didn't like it where they had to register each time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and uncheck that. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to click save. So now that's going to save it for every occurrence. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you how to start a meeting. So let's say tomorrow morning I wake up and I've done first period and now it's time for second period. I'm going to go to second period. I'm going to click start. And then it's going to open up Zoom. And here we are. You'll notice I'm in full screen. I go up here and I can exit full screen. And you'll notice right down here is I have my meeting controls. So that can be, this is something that you want to get used to right here. If you click on participants, this is where you could go and click invite. You can also see the invite link right here, and you see the password is embedded in that. And I'll show you how to do that within your settings. So click invite, and I can go right here and copy the invite link. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up to my Hangouts, and I'm going to go find an account, and I'm going to send this to myself. And then I'm going to join this meeting so I can show y'all how that looks. So before I actually go and join this meeting, I'm going to click share screen. And you know how I was talking about actually let me stop this recording because I'm double recording here. How we could do a whiteboard. Well, this is where you would choose whiteboard when you choose to share your screen. But in my case, I'm going to go ahead and do desktop 1 and click share. And now you should see a green edge around my computer screen, and that is everything that is being recorded. So now you will see everything there. Let's get rid of my Hangouts. Now I'm going to go join this meeting, and the practice would be you want to practice this with another device and be logged in or not logged into the other device with your work account so that you'll get the true effect for this. So you heard that my other account is asking to join. So I'm going to go up to the top, and I see now participants is at 2. I've chosen to have a waiting room, so I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to see that we have 1 waiting, and then I can remove them. I also want you to note that I can add them also, but I can also click more here. And I could actually, if I didn't want to have the waiting room, I could go ahead and turn it off. I could lock the meeting so I couldn't let anybody else in. And, you know, all these other choices right here, I'm not going to read those to you. So I'm going to go ahead and click admit and let in my phone. All right, so here I am. And here is my other account. And this is an attendee right here. So I can ask the attendee to unmute. You'll also notice that the video is not on. That way, that was because I turned it off as soon as he entered, or as the phone entered, I should say. So that's something you'll be aware of. You cannot turn your students' video back on for them. You can ask them to unmute, and they'll get a pop-up and that says stay muted or unmute. You can also click more. And let's say you've established a classroom procedure where you need to have them named a certain way when they came in, say first name and then last name. That way you can tell who they are as they enter the meeting. Then you can either rename themselves, or you could put them back into the waiting room and have them take care of that. Or you could go ahead and remove them from the class and then make them come back all the way in. So those are the type of procedures. You can also send someone an individual chat right here if you have that capability turned on. So that's important to know how to do. Every attendee, you will have this more button and be able to do that. Also, if you happen to have another adult come into the room, a co-teacher or whatnot that was not invited as a co-host or host, then what you can do is you can make them the co-host of the meeting just by clicking on that. And now all of a sudden, that person is going to be the co-host and be able to help you with the muting and the unmuting and just managing the class in general, or the breakout rooms and all that kind of stuff. Another thing while we're here, we talked about a little earlier, this is where all the controls are under participants. I just want to make that clear. We're under participants here. And also I want to show you, I'm moving around my bar as a host. So you can put this somewhere out of the way and then be able to access it again. It will kind of disappear for you. And then you can always find it again because we'll have this little green thing right here. So going back over here is where you can ask questions and get nonverbal responses, checks for understanding, and all that kind of stuff. So that is something to take definite note of. And this is exactly what you would do with your students. You would show them this. You're welcome to use our presentation for this. And so please, and make it your own. Just make a copy of it and make it your own, and then do what you need to do, and take screenshots or whatever you want to do so that you can train your students on using Zoom also. So going back down here to the controls, I talked about these little down arrows right here. If you're helping your students troubleshoot and just teaching them about troubleshooting in general, pressing that little down arrow to the right of unmute will allow you to see what the microphone speaker is, and also what the microphone is and what the speaker is, and they can make changes if necessary. And the same for the video if something's not working there. And while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about virtual backgrounds. Virtual backgrounds will turn the background of you into basically whatever you want. It could be a picture of you in the Coliseum or you at a beach. It can be a moving type virtual background, and it could be a good thing if you want to keep it, not have your background showing or whatnot, but you also be aware that that can be a distraction, and that if it's turned on, it's turned on for everyone. Moving along here, there's the security bar. This one's an important one. Please take note of this. If you press security, you can real quickly go ahead and turn chat off. You can turn off the ability to rename, unmute themselves, or annotate. So take a look at that. Again, they can, from here also, you can lock the meeting and make sure the waiting room is enabled. And then, of course, last but not least, you can remove a participant right there. So those are all things to think about. And so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. So this is your control bar, and I'm going to move along here. We will not have access to the polling, so let's not worry about that. The new share, this is by press this again. I could change it to doing the whiteboard over here, or I could stop the share if I wanted to. Now, if I am wanting to do something on my screen that I'm not wanting others to watch, if you press the pause share, then you can pause sharing your screen with your students, and then you can unpause it when you're ready to do it again. Say you're taking roll or doing grades or something else like that, and you want to have it locked on something while they're working on, say, a warm-up or a practice problem or whatnot. Annotating, once you press that, you'll have this little bar pop up, and then you can draw with it. You can do lots of neat things with this tool. And so I would, again, just suggest practicing with it and figuring out how best you can use it. And then one thing to note is, as you put stuff out here on the screen, that it is going to stay on the screen as you move around. So if I change back to our presentation, as I X out of this and then change back to our presentation, you'll notice the check mark stayed right there. So I have to clear those off, and I have to do that by pressing on annotate and then clear. And this is also in the settings, whether you want all students to be able to do this, you just want the person sharing, or anything else. And you can also do the drawing on here too. I think I was having a little difficulty with the color there. So that is annotating. Moving along here, click on more, and you'll see you have quick access to the chat, to the recording, and closed captioning. Let's not worry about that. It's actually, hopefully they're going to come out with some artificial intelligence that's going to help with that. Here's where the breakout rooms are going to be. So this is where you would click on that. You definitely want to be able to practice with this. So this is where practice with your students and get used to being able to do this. And then you can do it automatically and put them into groups, or you can do it manually, which might take a little bit longer. So that's how you would do the breakouts. Clicking on more again and going down here. Here's the note, then show the names of the annotators, so you could have different students working on different problems on your screen at the same time. Like right here, optimize screen share for the video clip. I did not make note of this when we first started the screen share, but when you do that, there's a little box on the bottom left you can click. Let's say you want to show a YouTube video to your student as part of the direct teach, then you could click this button right here, or check it as you were doing the screen share at the beginning, and then it would optimize this for showing videos. All right, and then of course right here is the end meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and click stop share and show you all that, what I was talking about there. So I click share screen again, and there, right there, share computer sound. So you'd want that on if you're going to play a video, and then also optimizing the screen share for your video clip. So those are both important to be able to do. So those are the controls of the Zoom, and I'm going to go ahead and end it. And I think the best way, again, to practice this is to practice, right? Just like anything. So I'm going to end meeting for all. And then you'll notice that Zoom is now converting this meeting, and it's going to save it into my documents by default. You can change that if you want. And then there we go. And you'll see that the audio only and then playback. And then if there had been a chat, it would also have it set in my settings so that it would give me print out a PDF of the chat. All right, so we've covered a lot of information so far, and everything that I have covered is in the Zoom itself and in the Zoom settings, I should say. So when we go to my account, and we're over here on the left, we were in the meetings part when we started this meeting. I just click start, remember? So we're going to skip over webinars, skip over recordings. We're not going to worry about those, and we're going to go to settings. If you don't have the ability to record, what you need to do is when you go to settings, click on recordings, and then enable this button right here. And then that's going to allow you to record. And then hosts can give participants the permission to record locally. Probably not going to need that checked. You can actually uncheck that if you wanted to. And by default, I would share with your students that you are going to be recording this for the direct teach part of it. And, you know, digital citizenship and everything we do on the internet is, you know, traceable, and that we're accountable for our behavior. So I'm going to go through these settings fairly quickly, and I'm going to take note of the ones that I feel that are very important. And then I want you're going to need to go through here on your own and make them your own. So I'm going to click back on meeting. And here I am. The very first thing, I do want a waiting room. I'm going to check that, and I'm going to practice with that. I'm going to keep scrolling down here, and I will take note of everything that I think is important. Embedding the passcode in the invite link. If you're putting your invite into the Google Classroom, that is pretty secure. I would go ahead and have that checked. If you don't have that checked, what's going to happen is Zoom is going to ask for a password, and you would need to provide the students with a password in addition to the link. Only authenticated users, that would mean the students would have to actually log in to Zoom before they would be able to join the meeting. So I'm going to leave that unchecked. Continuing down, this is your choice on how you want to have the video going at the beginning. I strongly recommend telephone and computer audio. Joining before the host, I would uncheck that so that they have to wait until you are ready. It'll just say the host has not started this meeting is all you need to worry about. Going to continue on. Muting participants upon entry. Excuse my dog in the background. I think we have a delivery happening right now, and he is doing his job. So muting participants upon entry, that again is something you need to think about. How is your beginning of your class going to look? Are you going to give your students the ability to spend some time face-to-face and talk amongst themselves? Or is the expectation that they're going to get started on the warm-up? What is the expectation for the beginning of class? Keep going down here until I find something else important, like chat. So I recommend having chat on, but I do recommend turning the private chat off until you have set the procedures for that, or you might just leave that off all the time. So if you just leave it on regular chat with private chat off, and also turning auto-saving chats on, then the students are only going to be able to chat to everyone out there. There's not going to be any private chats going on. Sound notification when someone joins or leaves, I'm going to have that checked right there, and I'm going to say only for hosts and co-hosts only. When I joined the meeting from my phone earlier, you possibly heard the little ding alerting me to that. That is very good to know when students are joining and when also they're leaving. One other thing to note is if you're posting in instructions or links into your Zoom chat, that if someone joins after you've already put something into the chat, that they are not going to see that there, so you would need to re-put that into it. It might be a good idea to send everything out first, or have it all within your Google Classroom before you have this, or Echo, or Seesaw if you're doing Seesaw. Continuing on, I recommend having file transfer off, and the only need for file transfer, all that could be taken care of within the Google Classroom. Continuing on, going to allow co-hosting. Always show the meeting control bar. I strongly recommend that you turn that on, and that will allow you to see that control bar at all times to be able to find it pretty quickly. Show Zoom windows during the screen share. For y'all, I would go ahead and toggle that off so that your students are not seeing all of the Zoom windows that you're seeing on your screen. Screen sharing, recommend turning that on so our students can show what they're learning and ask questions and make presentations and all that. Who can share? All participants, but very important here, who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? I recommend host only. Continuing on, desktop screen share for users. Yeah, you can leave that off. Annotation and whiteboard, these are personal choices here. I do allow the saving of the shared screens, and within there, I save it as a PNG. So what I would do here is just like everything else, I would let the students know the meeting is being recorded, and everything that is being annotated or done within the meeting is being documented. And that is purely for accountability and also for learning. Continuing on, remote control will need to be toggled off. And continuing to scroll down here, these two right here are going to be your personal choice for your classroom. If you remove someone from the classroom, if you do not have this unchecked, then they're going to be able to rejoin your classroom. So if you remove someone for needing to rename themselves, then they're going to be able to rejoin the classroom. And if you have this toggled off, then once you remove someone, they are removed from the class for that day. Allowing participants to rename themselves, we've talked about that. Your choice again on that. The rest of these right here, until we get to breakout room, we're now in the advanced. Breakout room, have that on, and then allow the host to assign participants. That's a good thing to do. Remote support, closed captioning, all this kind of stuff down here. The rest of this we don't really need to get into. So I'm going to go ahead and go right through this. And that's it for the settings. Now, what I would recommend doing is going back over here to the top of your screen and clicking back on meetings, and then starting a meeting, and then see what those settings do for you. So that is Zoom in a nutshell within the settings itself. I know that's a lot of information. You can pause this video and go back and all that kind of stuff. And you can also access this presentation again by going to tinyurl.com/Zoom20. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. We've covered all the recommended settings. You'll see that I have those in here. Most of these are pretty much up to date. And what I want to draw your attention to is I do have some slides down here for the host controls and the attendee controls. Definitely get familiar with this, practice. And right down here, we have resources. So this page right here is filled with some links, and I would like you to go to each of these links and check them out when you have the opportunity. This is going to be our support page on Zoom for our work. And then we have some presentations from some other educators. These educators right here, just like Mrs. Chun up at the top, have a presentation that is going to go over recommended practices and also recommended settings and whatnot. So this would be another great resource for you to check out. I will also say the Zoom Resource Center has some great videos for it, both within their Resource Center and their video tutorial page. Just yesterday, I actually took a Zoom live training. I've taken a number of them for different things. If you click on that link, it will take you to their live training webinars. They actually have one, Meetings for Education. If you click on this, you can actually watch a recording of it, or you can register for their next one. I'll watch a recording, and then you can fast forward through it and rewind as you want. It'll cover many of the same things that I covered. So that is a good resource. And then this is one on best practices for teaching with Zoom. All right, well, I want to thank you all for watching this. You have yourselves a great day. And if you need anything, please reach out to me through Hangouts or through email, and stay safe out there. We appreciate you all that you do for our scholars, and we appreciate you all just in general. Well, thanks again, and have a great day.